Good evening. I'm Leland Vittert. Yesterday's supply chain crisis is quickly creating an empty shelves crisis. Whether it's at grocery stores, home improvement stores, warehouse stores, restaurants, or even online, and despite universally higher prices, you can no longer count on getting what you want when you want it. If there's one thing you do not need during an empty shelf crisis, it's strikes. For the simple reason it makes things worse, much worse in fact. I say strikes plural because that's what's happening around the country right now. 10,000 John Deere workers walked off the job, affecting plants in Iowa, Illinois, Kansas, Colorado, and Georgia. In Iowa, this video is from Athena Ruiz. Then the tweet by Ty. This is going to get lost in the shuffle of the Deere news, but Latino workers at the Curley-Smithfield Sioux City, Iowa plant staged a walkout over wages yesterday. This was a wildcat walkout. They're not organized labor. They just all walked off the job. They process meat that we all want to eat for Thanksgiving and Christmas. They chanted Cesar Chavez's words, "Si se puede," meaning yes, we can. They can, and they did. In Michigan and Pennsylvania, Kellogg workers, the people who make Frosted Flakes, have walked picket lines since last week. Tens of thousands of healthcare workers on the West Coast say they're going to walk over wages and working conditions next week. And the timing here really, it's just not a coincidence. Here's one union boss describing the tactics to be used next week when 60,000 stagehands and laborers threaten to shut down Hollywood production.
We will use the full breadth and power of the labor movement to make sure that these companies are feeling the pain. And we have lots of levers that we can use in the labor movement.
Lots of levers for pain. The labor movement hasn't been this powerful or popular since the 1960s. This is Gallup polling showing the approval of labor unions. Now it's 68%. You got to go back to 1965 to get that number. Their newfound power and popularity comes from a confluence of the tight labor market. There's 11 million open jobs right now. Populism politics from the Trump administration that pushed manufacturing back here to America from overseas. And, of course, a labor-friendly president. Here's Joe Biden back in February.
I made it clear when I was running that my administration's policy would be to support unions organizing and the right to collectively bargain. I'm keeping that promise.
Given that, it's slightly curious why a president who quite literally and undeniably built his political career on the backs of union labor would ignore a question like this today.
I said many times, God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you very much.
What do you have to say to the striking unions? And he walked out. President Biden stayed silent today on that wave of strikes that's happening across the nation, just like he has on inflation, which is a huge part of the reason that these workers want more money while they're willing to risk their jobs for more money. The president hasn't mentioned inflation or strikes in any of his speeches this week. But his chief of staff did. Ron Klain shared a tweet calling inflation a high-class issue, despite the fact that everything from gas to beef to TVs cost a lot more now than it did last year. Every day, Americans are feeling those price increases. As discussed, gas is up $1 from $2.19 a gallon to $3.28. Coffee up $7.95 to $8.80. And furniture costs are up from $534 to $592 for an average piece of furniture. That's an 11% increase, the largest increase since 1951. And now hundreds of thousands of workers are walking off the job to fight for a fair deal. Here's why you should care. The longer these strikes go on, the longer this empty shelf crisis will continue for all of us, and the worse it will get. Here to talk about all of that, More Capito, state representative who understands the power of workers. He's offering folks $20,000 to move to his state to fill the worker crisis. Professor Chris Tilley studies labor markets and public policies directed towards workers across the country. But we start with NewsNation's Kelsey Kernstein on the John Deere picket line in Iowa. Kelsey, good evening.
Good evening, Leland. Well, I can tell you this, at the strike area behind me, it is growing. They've got porta potties out here, tents out here as well. They're out here for the long haul. They're demanding a fair contract. The union saying that these workers want a better share of the pie.
I'm pretty mad, yeah. A little nervous right now about my future because this is a big undertaking. And despite the pandemic, John Deere has seen a great year, with profits hitting nearly $6 billion. The CEO, John May, saw a $16 million salary back in 2020. That's a 160% increase in salary from 2019 to 2020. But union workers asking, where is the money going, since they are the bread and butter of the success? Now, employees, on the other hand, their average salary is about $60,000. And earlier this week, nearly 90% of the union rejecting a 5 to 6% raise. That's rejecting a nearly $72,000 salary.
15 years ago, I made more money than I'm making today. This is the only. I was a union cement mason before here. This is the only job that I've lost money consistently every year.
And nearly 10,000 workers, like you said, Leland, they are on strike across the nation at 14 different plants in places like Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, Colorado, and Georgia. You can hear these drivers honking their horns. They're showing their support. Now, more than 30% of the 28,000 production workforce is on strike right now. These people make things like lawn care equipment, forestry, as well as agricultural machinery. You can hear the honking. Well, we saw a strike back in 1986. It lasted 35 years. That strike lasted, it was 35 years ago, and that strike lasted 6 months. It happened across 10 different plants that had to halt production. Now, speaking to a union worker today, he tells me that if this were to happen again, it would devastate the Quad Cities and it would sting. But if that's what it takes, they're ready and they are willing.
We came out from Chicago to support the workers here. I think they're setting an example for working people everywhere.
And Leland, really these workers are really hoping that there is change and a fair contract coming.
We'll see how long it takes. Kelsey Kernstein, welcome to On Balance. We're glad to have you. Fantastic reporting. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Admittedly, as we have spent a lot of time this week talking about the labor movement in America, its newfound power, and the continuing empty shelf crisis. It goes far beyond what Christmas presents you can buy, but more importantly, why doesn't anyone else seem to care about these strikers? Yesterday, CNN spent a lot more time covering William Shatner's flight to space than anything else. Seems very telling that we pay more attention to a billionaire in space than to the demands of America's hardest workers and the effects of their demands and their strikes on the rest of us. Chris Tilley joins us now to help us understand who these people are and why they deserve our attention. Professor at UCLA. Professor, appreciate you being with us. Are we overstating, perhaps, or maybe not, the newfound power of the American worker in a big labor?
You're not overstating it. That power is real. We don't know how long it will last. It has to do with the kinds of labor shortages and supply chain sort of tightness that you've referred to. But yeah, workers have a lot more power than they have for years.
Interesting, out of Kelsey's report, what struck me, John Deere's offering 5 to 6% for employees. The CEO got 160% pay increase. Is it fair to compare those percentages as we're talking about things?
I think it is. And we've seen growing inequality in this country since the 1970s. The gap between the CEO and the rank and file worker has consistently grown. I think it makes sense for workers to point to that and to bring that up at a point when they finally have a little leverage to do something about it.
Well, and for sure, they've got a friend in the White House, even if President Biden has not mentioned anything about the strikers. His press secretary did today. Take a listen.
Our economy is shifting to a labor market where workers have more bargaining power. ultimately that's a good thing for workers to have more bargaining power and be able to choose more. That means workers can push for higher wages and more dignity and respect in the workplace.
We're talking about big companies here. John Deere, Kellogg, either Dow 30 companies or certainly on the S&P 500 companies. They can endure an awful lot of pain. Who's going to get worse here, the American consumer with the empty shelves or these companies?
Well, it does hurt these companies when they can't produce and when they're stuck at a point when part of what's happening is there's a surge of demand. If companies have a harder time meeting that demand, yes, they can jack up prices. But what they really want to be doing is selling products and expanding market share. So yes, if workers get more, that will feed through the economy and it will tend to contribute to inflation. But if what that means is that workers are getting a bigger piece of the pie, I would agree with Jen Psaki that that's a good thing.
Yeah, the question is bigger piece of the pie, and does it buy any more as inflation keeps going up? Inflation's up a lot more than a 5 or 6% raise, not up more than 160% raise that the CEO got. Professor Tilley, good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. West Virginia is capitalizing on this empowered worker movement at a time when there are tens of millions of job openings. They're using a unique tactic to lure remote workers in. The state needs new employees, and they are willing to pay big-time bucks to relocate to cities like Morgantown, Lewisburg, and Shepherdstown. Here's what you get. $12,000 cash, a free year of outdoor recreation, and free access to co-working space. Joining now to talk about this, West Virginia State Rep who came up with this idea and championed it, Mark Capito, good golf partner as well. Is this too good to be true, 12 grand to move to West Virginia?
Well, first, thank you for having me on, Leland. And I do have to say, I can't take credit for this. Really, it's been a team effort, but most of the credit goes to Brad and Elise Smith, who Brad is a native West Virginian, is very passionate about West Virginia, spent his career in Silicon Valley, and really had an idea to come back to West Virginia to make it more of a startup place, someplace that's more attractive to entrepreneurs, and really put his money behind that. So we're talking about a privately funded, where the dollars come from, program, and a talent recruitment program, really. And we think one of the most forward-thinking talent recruitment programs in the country for remote workers. You know, we saw a movement of folks looking for better lifestyle, want clean air, clean water. They want to recreate right by where they live. And we're trying to really capitalize on that. And we know in West Virginia that we have the most wonderful assets, but we need to show them off. So what we've put out is an attractive program to remote workers to have them come take a look at West Virginia for 2 years is the commitment initially. And we feel very strongly after that, they'll feel very comfortable here and want to stay.
All right, so you get the 12 grand, you've got to stay for 2 years. Where's the chicken and the egg here? Do you feel like if you recruit these higher quality remote workers that more companies are going to come in to West Virginia, or are you okay with all of these workers just being remote forever?
You know, I mean, I think at the beginning, it's probably going to start as a remote worker program, probably predominantly. But the way I really see it, and I've heard, you know, Brad Smith talk about this a lot, it's about really building an ecosystem. In the beginning, you get folks that have similar interests, similar ideas, and similar sectors. And all of a sudden, they're meeting at coffee shops 2 or 3 times a week. And then what springs from that are the seeds that really become startup companies, and these are very entrepreneurial people. So we see this as just a launching point for something that's going to become bigger. And I would say, I do want to put the plug in that we have a little over 50 applicants that have already been accepted into the program in Morgantown right now. Applications are open right now for our Lewisburg program. You can go to ascendwv.com to send in your application. We had over 7,500 applications for the first round. We obviously encourage everybody to apply for Lewisburg as well. It's different, but it's just as beautiful. And we intend over the next 5 years to have 1,000 remote workers in the state of West Virginia.
So part of this came out of necessity for West Virginia. You guys lost 50% of your coal mining jobs since 2009, lost greatest percentage of jobs of any state in the union. You put up the graphic, though, of who's coming to this. 2% associate degrees, 6% high school, 8% professional degrees, 36% have graduate degrees. What was interesting to me, though, is also the median salary is $105,000. So do you already have to have one of these high-paying tech jobs before you get the incentive pay to move to West Virginia?
You know, it doesn't have to be high paying, and it doesn't necessarily have to be tech. I think the application is open for discretion. We'll review them based on the merit and if folks want to be here. I mean, it doesn't need to be tech necessarily, and it doesn't have to be high paying. Well, those are just the statistics that we've seen so far, which are obviously additive to the state of West Virginia, but additive to the folks that are coming. I mean, again, I go back to clean water, clean air, space to move around. A great lifestyle. And we see with a lot of these remote workers, especially in this startup movement that we see, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for outdoor activity. They're looking for better lifestyle, better quality of living, lower cost of living. And we have all of those things to offer in the state of West Virginia. I'm happy to be able to talk about it.
And thank God you didn't start singing Almost Heaven. That's where we were going to end the interview. More, good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
Thanks, Leland.
All right, all the best. All right, that's the state paying you to come. Next, we're going to show you a place you will want to move to for free because it is a modern-day gold rush. Welcome back. It is a modern-day gold rush, you might say, in liquid form. The demand for oil dropped at the start of the pandemic, but now Texas towns that went bust when the demand tanked are back in business, and they are flush. Take a look at today's prices. The nationwide average for a gallon of gas is $3.29 a gallon. The cost of oil is at $82 a barrel. Compare that to a year ago. The average price of gas was $2.18, and the cost of oil was just $36 a barrel. There were a lot of Texas wildcatters who went broke in the bust. NewsNation correspondent Marky Martin live in Midland, one of the towns that is booming again. Good evening, Marky.
Hey, Leland. Yeah, Midland, Texas is by no means a one-horse town, but it is a one-industry town for sure. Just about a year ago, you had a lot of these pump jacks, these oil rigs sitting idle. A lot of those industry workers going from enjoying the finer things like a steak dinner, for example, to showing up for the very first time in some of those pandemic food bank lines. But now some of those signs of life are starting to show back up.
Regardless of what your job is, if you're in West Texas, you're in the oil business.
Renee Earls leads the Odessa Chamber of Commerce.
I was sitting right there in that chamber boardroom when it came across that oil was basically worth nothing, below zero. And while we've seen things get tough, we've never seen that.
It was April of 2020. Airlines parked planes, and gas stations sat empty, and the bottom fell out of the oil market. 40,000 jobs disappeared, and Midland, Odessa unemployment rate went from the lowest to highest in the state.
This is Grand Central for our well servicing group.
Carter Robinson is CEO of American Energy Management. Revenue for his business was down 80 to 90%.
It was a gut check moment of, are we going to survive this? What are we looking at going forward?
And many companies here didn't. But those that survived are once again pumping black gold from the West Texas ground.
It's nice to see a resurgence. It's nice to see some activity levels. And again, make no mistake about it, as a service space, we're not back to where we want to be, but we're certainly climbing up.
Now, earlier this week, Leland, oil, hit $84 a barrel. And while that bust seemingly happened overnight, that boom is just now starting to take place again. And with the unpredictable nature of the pandemic, there definitely is this, let's just wait and see. A lot of the experts I talked to this week said, we're not going to celebrate this win just yet. Let's wait and see if the good times roll once again here in West Texas. Leland.
Yeah, and they certainly have rolled at times in West Texas. Marky, great reporting. Thank you.
Well, I think there's always been two kinds of Christmas shoppers. There's the ones who have all their list completed by Halloween, and then there's people like me who show up at the mall on Christmas Eve. If you're in that latter bucket, obviously there's going to be more challenges.
Got to wonder about the tone of that during serious times. To some, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg sounded a little bit more like Grinch than Santa Claus after making light, as you heard, of the supply issues plaguing the United States. We've called it the empty shelf issues plaguing the United States, and they are going to definitely impact the holiday season. But those issues are affecting a lot more than just presents under the tree. They're affecting businesses, they're affecting salaries, they're affecting us at home, what we can buy and how much we have in our pocketbooks. Joining us now, a man whose business has definitely felt the hurt, Tom Maioli, entrepreneur and car dealer in New Jersey. Tom, appreciate you being with us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, you think about this. So, empty shelves, empty car lots.
Yes.
Forgive us, but why should people feel bad for you that you've sold out of all those nice cars?
Well, listen, if you don't have supply, you can't take care of your customer. If you can't take care of your customer, we have unhappy customers. And at the end of the day, we're in business to sell products, to make people happy, to give the consumer what they want. And right now we can't give it to them. There's no supply.
How is this affecting, though, your business? You say you can't give it to customers. Okay, rich people can't buy new nice cars from a nice car dealership. Is there other carry-on effects that you've had to deal with? Are you having to cut hours for people? Are there salesmen who aren't making their quotas and thus aren't bringing home what they thought they were going to?
Listen, we had to cut a lot of hours. We had to cut staff back. The other thing is that, just because rich people can't buy cars, the people that need to repair the cars, to have their cars on the road so that they can get to work, take their kids to school, we don't have the parts for them. We can't get the parts to repair these cars. I'm a real estate developer also. I can't get lumber. I can't get roofing materials. This is an epidemic. It's a problem, and the government needs to step in. The president needs to step up and do something about this.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's always, at the end, the president needs to step up and do something. Yes. He said yesterday, actually, he's doing everything in his power. We had some questions about that. But what is it that you would want him to do that he's not doing exactly?
It's interesting because I was just on Fox News last night having the same conversation, and we were talking about this. And, the commentator asked me, what would you do if you had a sit down with President Biden? What would you tell him to do? And, I have a logistical background. I built a global logistics company that I sold off in the early 90s, and so I understand supply chain. And, right now, if I were to sit down with President Biden, I'd say, listen, here's the first thing you need to do. You need to deal with the fact that we can't get these containers unloaded and get the product to the people that need it. We have unemployed people. Let's incentivize them. This is not trained labor. We can unload these containers. The second thing I would do is I would say, listen, we need to prioritize what's in those containers. If we're unloading the first container that hits the port, that's not the right method. We need to get through those containers. We need to understand what's in those containers.
Hold on. There's lots of these sort of little kind of things. I mean, you could talk about nationalizing the Longshoremen's Union. You could talk about bringing in the National Guard. There's these issues.
Yes.
But what, you think that the people who run the ports don't understand that they need to unload a few containers before the other containers? That's
they don't understand it. They don't understand it. We need to prioritize. If there's critical supplies that people need to run their daily lives, whether it's toilet paper or paper towels or whatever it is, we need to prioritize that. We need to get those containers unloaded so that people can have the supplies that they need to run their lives. The second is we need to backfill the supply chain. What's the most important thing in the supply chain? Is it automobiles? Is it manufacturing? Is it computers? We need to determine that, and we need to get those containers unloaded and get the products and the parts that people need to run their lives and run businesses.
Yeah, I can imagine a car dealer thinks car parts are the most important. A guy who makes computers thinks computer chips are the most important. It's complicated. Tom, thank you.
It's very complicated, yes. Yeah. But you know what? That's why we need the government to step in, and we need them to prioritize.
Boy, you're the first businessman who's ever told me that the government's the answer, but we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Moving on forward, what Kyrie Irving's stance on vaccine mandates is telling us about the anti-vax movement. But first, if masks are required in this state, why not just go to the other down the road? That's killing some small businesses on the East Coast. We'll introduce you to them when we come back. In the summer of 1776, the founders began building America on the idea that Americans know what's best for them and enshrined our right to choose what's best for us. Polling is one way to figure out what Americans think is best for them. Voting's another. And also, you got to look at where Americans vote with their pocketbook. That tells us a lot. Gym owners in Washington, D.C. and Maryland are warning about losing business to neighboring Virginia because Maryland and D.C. have mask mandates, Virginia does not have a mask mandate. So there's a lot of folks coming from Maryland and D.C. into Virginia. Gyms are booming in Virginia since you're not forced to wear face coverings there. NewsNation's Capitol Hill reporter Joe Khalil live in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. Joe, I lived in D.C. for 6 years. I made it to Tyson's Corner once. It feels as though there's a lot more people making the trek, though, right?
Yeah, there are. I mean, that's what we're hearing from a lot of these gym owners. Look, it's hard sometimes to work out with a mask on. They say that their members are, in many cases, driving from gyms in D.C. and in Maryland and coming here to Virginia to work out because there is no mask mandate here. We talked to Brian Myers. He's the guy who runs 70 of these solid core gyms. One of them is here next to us. He says it's hard to maintain membership at a lot of these places and get people to continue to pay their dues at places in Washington and in Maryland when they can come here in Virginia. A lot of his locations here are doing much better. He actually wrote a letter to D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser about this, just asking for parity with, restaurants and other places that don't have the same requirements. And he says, look, he actually requires everybody who works out at his places to get a vaccine. So he says by doing that, he's keeping people safe. He's following the science, but he thinks you don't need to require the face coverings.
We are really just trying to survive. In the places where we have mask mandates, we've seen significant impact to our business, anywhere in the range of 10 to 15%. It is absolutely possible to run businesses successfully, protect public health all at the same time.
Now, caveat, the CDC may not always agree with him. He says he hasn't heard yet from Bowser's office, and he says there's no timeline or benchmarks on when those mandates could be lifted for him. Makes his job tough, Leland.
Yeah, there were a number of gym owners and groups that got together and tried to get the D.C. mayor to make a deal, and she just wouldn't even get back to him. Fascinating, and perhaps telling about
8 others signed on with his letter as well.
Wow. Yeah, good data. You got to wonder why the mayor wouldn't at least engage. Joe, thank you very much. All right, so obviously states are continuing to battle over mask and vaccine mandates. The president, of course, is pushing his own version of mandates. Here he is today.
Vaccination requirements should not be another issue that divides us. That's why we continue to battle the misinformation that's out there.
The president says that vax mandates shouldn't divide us, but they very much are, and that doesn't appear to be dissipating. It's also starting to unite many Americans and questioning why Washington is getting so involved in our lives. New Gallup poll finds that 52% of Americans believe the government is doing too many things that should be left to individuals or businesses. 43% believe the government should be doing more. We bring in Philip Wegman, Real Clear Politics White House correspondent, friend of the show. Philip, good to see you. What's the White House's calculation on this?
Well, what we heard from the president just a moment ago is really wishful thinking. He might say that vaccine mandates should not be political, that they should not be divisive, but that's the environment that we're currently living in right now. I think that if you take a moment to actually look at the statistics right now, we see that about 78% of American adults, according to the CDC, have gotten one dose of the vaccine, but that's not enough for the administration. They want to go after the other 66 million Americans who still haven't voluntarily gotten the shot. And the line coming out of the White House right now is that is irresponsible. And remember, this is a change. The administration, they began their tenure by promising that vaccine mandates were not going to come full swing. Well, here we are now in the 10th month of Biden's presidency, and they're very much the byword.
It's interesting, though, the vaccine mandate as it relates to businesses, private businesses, the federal government's mandate, it almost seems to be this kabuki dance by the White House. They keep saying it's coming, and this was the president today on talking about businesses. Take a listen.
We have critical work to do, but we can't let up now. My team and I are doing everything we can, but I'm calling on more businesses to step up.
Everything we can. Is that sort of this tacit admission that they're really never going to get around to this federal vaccine mandate on large employers because they just can't pull it off?
Well, when they announced that there was going to be a new Department of Labor rule that was essentially going to be a private vaccine mandate, the immediate expectation was, well, this has to go through the rulemaking process. This is going to take some time. I don't think anyone expected that it would take this much time. But, we have heard from the White House press secretary previously, which is that, yes, once this new Department of Labor mandate is out there, there will be penalties if someone doesn't either make certain that their workforce is vaccinated or has access to testing. But in the interim, she sort of admitted that it would be great if some of these businesses went ahead and initiated their own mandates. And thus far, that's what we've seen. Some businesses have gone ahead.
Yeah, it's been 6 weeks, though. You kind of have to wonder what they're all waiting for. Typically, if the president orders something to get done, it's done in a matter of hours, not in a matter of weeks. Philip, always good reporting, always good perspective. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. It appears that the ESPN host also didn't get the president's memo that vaccine mandates shouldn't divide us. A fierce debate is rocking the sports world over Brooklyn Nets star Kyrie Irving. He's gotten benched for refusing to get the vaccine. ESPN host Stephen A. Smith shouting down analyst Jay Williams, who defended Irving's making his own decision.
I would talk to Kyrie about how I felt, about how I came to a conclusion.
You asking
on
questions
that
as you're
decision for my
talking.
family.
Which one's it going to be? You asking questions and then answering me. You going to ask me a question, but you ain't going to let me answer? I'm trying to answer you.
Go ahead. Okay,
yes! Yes! That meant yes!
Well, I guess we cleared that up. Ben Ladner covers the NBA, writing for the Step Back, co-host the Read and React podcast. Ben, good to see you. The country is divided over vaccine mandates. Is the NBA divided over the mandate or divided over what should happen to Mr. Irving?
Well, the situation with Kyrie is a little bit unique compared to someone, say, like Michael Porter Jr., who plays for the Denver Nuggets and is also unvaccinated. The whole, I guess, impetus for this saga surrounding Kyrie is that the city of New York has an ordinance that requires all members of a professional sports team, members of the public, to view a professional sporting event to be vaccinated in order to go to that place of business. And so the issue here is that by the city of New York's ordinance, Kyrie is not allowed to play in Nets home games. And so the consequence of that was that he was going to have to be essentially a road game only participant of the team. The Nets came out earlier this week and essentially said, we won't have any member of our organization participating part-time. And so they essentially, declared that if Kyrie wasn't going to get the vaccine, he was just going to have to be away from the team because they couldn't afford to have him popping in and out of the team, playing away games, but not being at home, not being able to practice, things like that. And so I think just the cloud that would have surrounded that was not something the Nets wanted to take on. And so, now we're in a situation where he essentially is not part of the Brooklyn Nets unless he decides to get vaccinated or for some reason the city lifts the ordinance.
I'm interested in this because over the past few years, we've seen the NBA be very protective and supportive of their players who chose to speak out on social issues, not things related to basketball, social justice issues, education, inequality, income inequality, the like. Is there the equal support for Mr. Irving, who may have an opinion that is not quite as popular within the NBA, for his right to speak out?
Well, it's interesting because when you hear a lot of the players around the league talk about this issue, and at Media Day a couple weeks ago, a lot of them were asked, what is your stance? Do you think players should get the vaccine? And a lot of them sort of danced around the question and said, well, I got it because it was best for me, but I'm not going to tell anyone else what to do. And I'm going to let people make their own decisions. So the players union and the players around the league have been fairly supportive, or at least not outright critical, of Kyrie choosing not to get the vaccine. I think the difference here between speaking out against systemic racism, education, inequality, things like that, is that the decision Kyrie is making, it technically is a personal decision because it must be made by him personally. But it's a decision that has ramifications beyond just him. It's something that can affect those around him, something that can affect his teammates and the broader community. And so I think that's why it's a little bit more there's less support for him among sort of the media and the public on this.
Yeah, they're certainly not canceling games like the NBA did in the past when they were upset over things. We haven't seen anything like that. Hey, Ben, great conversation. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Good to see you. President Trump had some very, very, shall we say, threatening words for the Republican Party. What he says Republicans have to do, or he's going to tell them not to show up at the polls when we come back. Oh, before we leave, though, Dan Abrams Live is with us. Dan, unfortunately, we thought we were going to break, but then the teleprompter changed. These things happen.
Happens to me all the time. That's the beauty of being in a relatively startup environment here. We roll with it, right?
There you go. What do you got?
So, coming up on my show, we got a number of hot topics. Obviously, talking about some of the comments you were talking about there about Virginia and it being sort of the bellwether and why the Republican there seems to be distancing himself from Donald Trump. Will Donald Trump become the big issue? We'll talk about the Joe Rogan CNN dust up. A lot of tunes changed over at CNN when he got to come back and play at the home team instead of being over on Joe Rogan's show with Sanjay Gupta. Talk about that. And also, you thought defunding the police was done. You thought defunding the police was dead. So did I. But apparently it's just about how you define it.
Oh.
It's just a definitional issue. Who knew? All that coming up on the show.
Who knew? That's why we turned to you. See you in 16 minutes. We'll be right back. President Trump is threatening Republicans across the country, essentially saying support the big lie and prove that he won the 2020 election, or he, President Trump, will tell Republican voters not to vote for you in the upcoming midterms and beyond. Joining us now, Jeff Duncan, Republican Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, who openly opposed Mr. Trump's claims of voter fraud and has been quite outspoken on the issue. Governor, is it becoming harder or easier to be an anti-Trump Republican?
Well, I think as we're watching the events play out and statements like that, those self-inflicted wounds are continuing to lose his credibility as he continues to say crazy things like that. I mean, an example of that strategy played out here in Georgia, and I had a front row seat for it, and it was Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue's runoff race, and those comments about not coming out to vote actually hurt us, and 400,000 Republicans stayed home. Certainly that's not helpful for the situation.
Joe Scarborough from MSNBC, Morning Joe, said this. Take a listen.
And now here you have Stacey Abrams going to be running against Brian Kemp, a popular Georgia Republican governor. But Donald Trump is telling his base, don't vote for Kemp, vote for Stacey Abrams. I mean, if you're a Georgia Republican, you got to be thinking this guy is a cancer on our state GOP party.
You guys on the same page with cancer?
Yeah, look, that was one of the more embarrassing moments I've seen. That rally down in Perry, Georgia, 2 weeks ago was a three-ring circus and not a political rally. And to hear somebody go up there on stage and to talk like that and say Stacey Abrams is a better governor than Brian Kemp is ridiculous. Brian Kemp is the most conservative governor in Georgia's history and has earned the right to be reelected as navigating us through the social unrest, the pandemic, our unemployment rates coming below 3%. I mean, this guy's a rock star, and Donald Trump is more worried about his pride than his party. And look, this is the scenario that's playing out. That's really what GOP 2.0 is all about, is watching this self-inflicted wound pattern continue to play out. And look, we just need a safe place to call home for folks that really care about conservative values, that understand limited government matters and public safety and national security. Because at the end of the day, Joe Biden's should make this easy for us right now. With as bad as he's leading this country, with the mistakes he's making. I just left a football game with my son. That's why I'm dressed in a polo shirt here tonight. And all the parents are sitting there talking about either their family being affected by the inflationary environment or their businesses. And this is a crisis level here in trying to figure out supply chain. I mean, this is real.
Yeah, we're seeing it play out. We're seeing it play out in the Virginia governor's race. A state that was Biden plus 10 is now a toss-up for the governor's race there because of these national political issues. But coming back to where you were, and forgive me for saying this, but if you were Mr. Kemp held a rally, Governor Kemp, you'd be lucky to get a tenth of the number of people who showed up for President Trump, wouldn't you?
Yeah, because I talk about this in the book that I wrote. It's a silenced majority. Look, a majority of Americans, or Republicans, or Democrats for that matter, don't show up to rallies, take time away from their family to go show up there. They watch the leadership play out on TV. And quite honestly, that's really, I think, what happened in the 2020 election cycle. Donald Trump used the same pattern and campaign strategy in 2016 that he did or 2020 that he did in 2016. And enough folks were concerned about the leadership style going forward. If he would have just reminded a number of, millions of Americans how good he was at leading through the pandemic and all the regulations and on the border, he could have won again, but he didn't. And instead, we've got Joe Biden, the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, you're not the first Republican to wish the president would run on his record rather than some of the other feelings. Lieutenant Governor, thank you. Appreciate it. We'll be right back. There's been some new reaction after Las Vegas Raiders head coach John Gruden, was forced to resign over offensive emails. Now Raiders quarterback Derek Carr wants all of the NFL coaches, GMs, and owners' private emails released. Carr and Gruden were quite close. We don't know if Carr has been watching, but as you know, being loyal viewers, we here on the program think releasing all those emails is a great idea, and more importantly, a just idea. We bring in Henry McKenna of the USA Today Sports Media Group, managing editor for The Win. Henry, I bet, is there any realistically owners or coaches who are now nervous and are going, I wonder what's in my email?
Yeah, I imagine there are a few. Unfortunately, that's the reality of the NFL. We've seen it for years, for decades, that there are systemic problems, racism, sexism, misogyny. I mean, you can name a lot of them, unfortunately. So you see it everywhere, and I think that no doubt that if we did what Derek Carr is asking, if we got the NFL to release emails, coaches, general managers, owners especially, we would see a lot of what we just saw with John Gruden, which is that many of these organizations and their leadership groups are rotten to the core.
It's hard to imagine that John Gruden's emails that they happen to leak out are the only 3 offensive emails among 650,000 that they have from the then Washington Redskins, who had this terribly toxic work environment. As you're doing your reporting, is there any grassroots beginning, any kind of organizing among players to sort of force the NFL's hand on this?
Well, that would have to come through the NFLPA and DeMaurice Smith. And of course, DeMaurice Smith was one of the people who Gruden denigrated in his emails. So I think that there will be, and I hope that there will be, movement within the NFLPA. Unfortunately, players have actually stiffened on DeMaurice Smith, pushing him to do a little bit more, to stand up to the league a little bit more. And so hopefully this will be a situation where he can take a stand. And unfortunately, it is directly impacting him. And that's such an unfortunate element of the story and can't be ignored. But at the same time, it seems like perhaps he can move it forward and take a step forward with this, because we won't see change unless the NFL Players Association.
Henry,
really
I got to cut you off because Dan Abrams is next, but I applaud you for being the first reporter to come on and be willing to say the truth about some of the NFL's problems. Thank you. Great program. Here's Dan.
Yeah, thanks for having me.